In my mind, I built my own case for it being okay to write. And, an hour after I published the blog, all of a sudden they had a murder suspect. And that was when I was like, oh God, I've made a horrible mistake.
So we're going to talk to Francis right now? Right now. Okay, good. When was the last time that you didn't have a job at all? I mean, are you technically, if somebody asks you now, are you unemployed?
I guess so. But it's more like a reversion to being a comedian. This is what things were like before I worked at Barstool, and I had to tutor to pay my bills and my rent and whatnot. And now I'm hoping that I can find income and a sustainable income through things that are a little more tangential to being a comedian.
When I lived in California in like 05, 06, I did some tutoring, some English tutoring, and these kids, even then, they're worse now, but they're sort of the beginning of the phone era, were the biggest assholes I ever dealt with, ever. They sucked. And they weren't dumb either. They were smart, but they were just lazy, and they were rich, and I fucking hated it. Like, that might be actually the worst job I ever had, was a part-time tutor, honestly.
Wow.
No? You had a different experience?
I mean, everyone always thought that was going to be the case, and they would ask me that. But I always found, and I think it was probably because of the network I cultivated, but like I had good families early on.
Yeah.
And then they would only really refer me to their friends. So I rarely ended up with horrible, horrible kids. But, I did have them here and there. I had a mom once who I think was trying to seduce me. She was big on yoga and Pilates, and she'd sort of flaunt that and then text me all the time. She was divorced. Right. So, I had sex with her. I didn't. I should have, but I didn't.
So this is really, I just want to ask you about your tutoring experience. I'm kind of done now. I have nothing else. We're good? Or I want to be a full investigation of yours. So walk me through what is it? Oh, that's somebody bringing into our place. So walk me through this. Obviously, we talked about it yesterday. Everyone's talking about it. Portnoy fires you Friday. Sort of go backwards, and I know you wrote about it, and you were pretty honest and candid, and it was a good read. So you see, does it work that you see the like on Instagram and you go from there?
I mean, yeah, it's a little more complicated, I guess.
Well, go ahead.
Basically, yeah. So on Friday morning, I was looking for stories to write about, and I saw this Mackenzie Lueck story, and that was actually the first time that I'd read about her. I didn't see the stuff that whole week about her. So the thing I saw was that she had liked an Instagram post, so her sorority sisters were active. And I know from working at Barstool for 2.5 years that blogs that have the word sorority sister and Instagram and, that sort of thing tend to do well. Those are kind of like viral words. And then I saw that she was a fan of Call Her Daddy. And then all the news sources I was reading were highlighting that she was on Seeking Arrangements and was on these sugar daddy dating websites. And it seemed like a story that had enough in it that people would want to read it. And it didn't really register with me that it was a missing person case. And especially given that what I was going off of was like the Instagram like, and then I read a headline from a few days earlier that said no foul play is suspected. And that was when I started reading it and writing it. And then I later read in the New York Post article that like they had changed that status to no comment or something. And I even admitted, I think in the blog that, it didn't look that good, but it was still in my mind a young lady that was going to turn up okay. And I think that was just, I don't know why that was the case for me. I guess I was just, betting on her. And unfortunately, it was a humongous, careless oversight on my part. It was very lazy. And it came off, of course, as being wildly inconsiderate. And, an hour after I published the blog, all of a sudden they had a murder suspect. And that was when I was like, oh God, I've I've made a horrible mistake.
How long was it up for, Francis? How long was the actual post online available?
Maybe an hour or two.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure.
Right. So what happens then? I mean, what happens then? We'll go back to the sort of mistakes you made and ask you about those, but what happens from just a Portnoy, Nardini perspective for you? So that happens. What happens between the suspect being arrested and Portnoy's video where you're getting fired? Who calls you? What's the conversation? How does it work?
Yeah, so I texted Erica because then I got an email from a guy at the Daily Beast who, was reaching out for reaching out for comment.
Mm-hmm.
And he was doing it in a way where you just know that
he's out to fuck you totally.
Things are about to happen for you.
Yep.
So I then texted Erica to let her know about what I had done. And then Dave reached out and said, what are you doing? And was pretty angry. I reached out to our editor-in-chief and he was like, why would you do that? And it kind of just snowballed from there. It kept getting worse and worse. I felt from the moment that I got the email that I might get fired. And I think we just kind of moved towards that as the day progressed. And that's ended up being, the case.
At any point, did you make a case for yourself to keep your job? Did you think, so when you wrote your thing on Friday night, you felt you deserved to be fired, it was justified, you understood that. Is that something you felt like you kind of had to write to appease Barstool? Do you think it was right that you were fired? Do you think maybe you should have been suspended? Or do you think that they made the right call?
Look, when you look back on it, I mean, it's ridiculous for me. Like
ridiculous that you did it.
That I did this, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a responsibility as a writer at the company, and especially one who has the freedom to publish his or her own blogs, to be more careful. And you have the weight of however many 10,000, 100,000 eyeballs on your back that were brought to you by Dave Portnoy, by the people that built the company. And that is something that I did not take as seriously as I should have in this moment. And it's kind of a gift and a privilege, but it's also something that requires that you act like a fucking adult. And I don't know why I just really fell apart on this one, but that's what happened. I didn't even, sometimes you forget that people are even reading this stuff. And I chose a topic that was so far out of bounds, and any person with common sense would not have touched it. And I thought, I wonder how I can try to make this funny. And that was my mistake. That's what I did.
What I think hurt you more than the actual story itself is the headline. I think if the headline was different, you'd still have a job. It's a college student, fan of Call Her Daddy and Proud Sugar Baby, still missing, sorority sisters hopeful due to a recent Instagram activity. If you wiped out Proud Sugar Baby, I actually think you'd still have a job.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean,
that's just.
Right.
Go ahead.
People who write at Barstool, people will know what I was trying to do.
Sure. Yeah, no, and obviously I've read you and I've read Barstool, but I'm just saying I can see where you're giving ammunition to the people who want to take Barstool down. A, and B, it's like you said, I've made a million stupid mistakes. It's just a stupid thing to write. B, but that sort of suggests that you're casting aspersions about her, fair or not, about her character while she's missing and now dead,
Yeah, I guess so. I didn't mean it that way.
No, I understand that.
What I was going for was to have people click on the blog.
Right.
Look at all the words in there. I mean, it is Instagram, sorority sisters,
Call Her Daddy,
Sugar Daddy, and Call Her Daddy. Like that to me was a grand. I hate to use this word, like a grand slam of clickbait. It was, 4 of the most sought after terms, I guess, on the company. And, you just follow this. I followed a formula that I knew, and I got lost in it. I became detached from the reality of the story.
How long is the process? Like, so you see this thing, you see, like, you just walk me through it. You see the Instagram like, you read the thing in People. From when you start digging around to when you write the story, how long is that process? An hour, 2 hours till you post? I mean, from beginning to post, is that
maybe with this one, it was like half an hour.
At any point during that process where you're like, any part of you that had that, because I've had that, you have that feeling in your stomach where you do something, God knows I've done it, where you're like, geez, I could see how this person would see it this way, this person see it that way. Did that pit form in your stomach at all during this process?
I hate to say this, but I had convinced myself that she was all right.
Yeah,
and I thought I had covered my bases by what I had read about the Instagram like. And I'll tell you something, Kirk. There were, I hate to say this, there were actually a couple jokes in like an earlier version that I had written that I took out. I think I published the blog, and then like 10 or 20 minutes later, I went back and looked at it and thought, oh, you know what? You got to be a little more careful. And I took out a couple of those jokes. And I think that guy, Robert Silverman, found them somehow. And he's probably going to write another piece about me with those jokes included. But the jokes, as horrible as they are and sound, shed light on the truth, which is that I really thought she was alive. I wrote some joke about like, let's hope that she's on a yacht somewhere with an older man, sailing the high seas. That's how I like to picture her, at least. And then it was like, she's a fan of Call Her Daddy. I hope that when she comes back to do her I'm Okay tour, like her press tour, we can put her in a Degrade Me sweatshirt, which is like their signature piece of merch. And it speaks to this, crazy assumption I had come to that she was perfectly fine.
Yeah, I hate, I hate judging what's funny, what's not funny, telling comedians what they can write, can't write, firing people for speech. The only thing I would say is it seems to me to be like a unbelievable miscalculation that you would just assume that she was okay. I mean, obviously you're saying that, but it just seems like unbelievably for you to think, oh, she's going to be fine. I'll write this. I'm not sure how you got to that point in your head. That's all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just does. I'm not, we've contacted very briefly. You seem like a very nice guy. I could tell you feel terrible. You made this mistake and you're taking your punishment for it and you've been good about it. But I look at it, I'm like, Jesus, how, you read it and you're like, how does this, it's kind of classic. And I've been there. What was he thinking sort of scenario? And nobody, there's nobody you talk to from writing it to sending it, right? You have full control Correct. At that point. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, it's easy, I think, to look back now and say, what on earth were you doing? How did you not see the writing on the wall? Why weren't you paying attention? All of that. And I don't have an answer for that. I can tell you definitively that if people think I was writing a blog to shame a girl that I thought was dead, like that's so ridiculous.
I think the professional Barstool haters will write that or say that they don't think that. I don't think any reasonable person thinks that. I think a reasonable person who's in the middle, who doesn't love Barstool or hate Barstool and sees the story, I think their only reaction is like, Jesus, like, how did he not allow for the possibility that, she's not okay?
Yeah, I think maybe a part of it is that I have always strived to find humor in difficult places.
What was your job?
But especially like, early when I first started, I would write about dark topics, and that was an area that I wanted to mine in a way. And whether it was, I don't know, just like finding some kind of light in really dark things and dark humor was something I gravitated towards. And I'd gotten away from it. I hadn't done it in a long time. And then this, to me, I thought because of the Call Her Daddy connection and the Instagram post, all that stuff. It seemed like, in my mind, I built my own case for it being okay to write.